And hello, friends, and welcome to another episode of Chapters here on Armstrong Television. Chapters is the show that profiles authors, editors, and publishers in West Virginia, Ohio, and Kentucky. I'm Eliot Parker, and it's great to have you with us. On our program today, we're talking about a new book and a very important book dealing with anxiety, depression, and ADD and ADHD. And our author today, joining us on the program today, is Sam Garton. And Sam is the author of the new book, Devil's Candy, The Lethal Dangers of Antidepressant Drugs, A True Story. And Sam joins us today. He's a native of Huntington, West Virginia. He graduated from Huntington High School. He spent some time living in living in North Carolina near the Wilmington area. He graduated from Marshall University. He's currently an insurance broker with State Farm Insurance, and he participates in Taekwondo training at Master Tim's Traditional School in Huntington. He also likes working out, hanging out with friends, and taking weekend trips with pals. And we're delighted to have Sam with us today as we talk about this very important book about an issue that affects so many people, and many of us can identify with this because if we're not directly affected from this issue, we know of someone in our inner circle, our friends or family members, who are affected and impacted by that. And so, Sam, welcome to the program today as we talk about your book. Good to have you with us.
Yeah, thanks for having me on board, Eliot. It's an honor to be here and to share my experience with people. It's really not something that I'm like happy to talk about, but it's very unfortunate that it happened to me and it happens to other people. But I never had depression prior to. I did have depression because I had like shoulder surgery, and then after that, I was just going through a lot at the time. But after I took the drugs, it's just things got really out of control. It was the depression was so severe that I could hardly bear. But I learned to overcome the situation, thank God, and I'm sharing my experience because I believe I can help people. So, yeah. But basically, so what happens, as I was explained from doctors, what happens with the drugs, it obviously doesn't affect everybody in a negative way. Statistics show that I guess 40% of people are negatively impacted by the drugs, and those statistics were done by a forensic psychiatrist that I know, and she's a world-renowned forensic psychiatrist. But so what happens is your synapse inside your brain produces neurotransmitters. And what happens is the drugs, the antidepressants, when they're in your system, it blocks the receptor from recycling the serotonin or neurotransmitter serotonin. And what that does is it builds up serotonin and increases those levels temporarily, but it can be good, it can be bad, but from my experience, I wouldn't even take the chance. As I wrote in my book, it's almost like playing medical Russian roulette, as I've learned. So it was a pretty hard-fought battle, years of recovery from brain damage from the drugs, but I'm here and happy to talk about my experience, to warn people, and to also just give you some advice, things that I've learned, personal experience along the way. Yeah, it's all in my book.
Very good. So I wanted to backtrack just a little bit, and you talk about this, and I know you talked about this a moment ago, briefly. And I like how you open your book. You say this book will probably be one of the shortest, most beneficial books you will ever read if you have problems with anxiety or depression caused by serotonin toxicity. And you talked a little bit about kind of what that is with the synapses. So when you're going through that, or when you were going through that, how did you feel? What did you feel like? What was going on mentally as you were realizing that something was going on that just wasn't quite right? with that?
Well, when I first started taking the medication, I want to say it was a placebo effect, uh, because the drug wasn't really in my system, and because I heard for the drug to work, it has to build up in your system, and it takes time. But I took it, the first day I took it, I just wanted to believe something could help me at the time, because at the time I had shoulder surgery, and I was depressed that I couldn't work out anymore. And then my grandmother passed away, and there's just a couple other things that had me down in life. But I took the drug, and then the next day I felt like, wow, this is awesome. Like I'm 100% better. I just wanted to believe in something, believe that there was a magical pill that can solve all my problems. And I think that was a placebo effect, because as time went on, the drug did build up in my system, and I started to notice changes in my behavior. How I just felt like a different person. Um, in my book, I noticed that I would laugh in certain instances where you're not supposed to laugh. I didn't like blurt out loud and laugh, but like, as I say, as an example inside my book, it was just, it's kind of hard to explain, but just my behavior was just, I don't want to say it was the best, but I didn't really reveal my behavior. I kept it bottled up. So like in my book, I have as an example, maybe my best friend could have told me that his dad died, and maybe on the inside I'm thinking, okay, that's funny, but really it's not funny, And I was thinking, and then I look at myself and I'm like, why was I thinking that? Like that's a sick thing to think about, that's really sick. And it's just, and then there was another time I have written in my book. I went to my dad's house to have dinner, and we were arguing over something. Must have been, I think I bought an expensive car or something, and I didn't really have the money for it. But we were arguing over something silly like that, and I just looked over at him and I gave him a creepy wink, as we were like arguing, and he noticed that, and he told me about that, and he was just he noticed that was just super creepy, and I didn't realize the changes in my behavior. I just thought I was normal, but it would kind of take me off guard sometimes. It's just there were slight changes, but then the day when the nurse practitioner, who I thought was a psychiatrist, and doubled my dose, that's when everything went overboard, and I went into serotonin toxicity, and that's, I guess, in chapter 3, I think I titled that chapter "All Hell Broke Loose," because that was, yeah, that was like the worst time of my life. And then after that, just trying to recover from the brain damage, that was a really long road, hard-fought battle. It's just it's a war against your mind, and when you're in that type of situation, you're in constant war with yourself, and you don't know who you are. It's almost like I had Alzheimer's, because I'd wake up every morning and I'd have so much anxiety. I didn't know who I was, where I was, for about 5 to 10 minutes, like every day for about a couple of years. And that was like terrifying. But after 5 to 10 minutes, I would slowly come into reality. And also, you go through psychosis, and you don't know if this is even real, like this whole reality. But that's just a part of the brain damage in trying to fight through. And it was just a long, hard fight, and I could see how people do commit suicide on these drugs, and why they do have a black box label warning, because I know I wanted to commit suicide on the drugs every day. It just ate me alive. but I had a little voice inside of me that's just kept telling me to keep going, and I just kept praying, and I did all the therapies that I wrote down in my book, and I made it through. So.
And I know all this really got started for you, and you write about this early on in the book, at 13
Mm-hmm.
when you were diagnosed with ADD,
Yeah.
which is attention deficit disorder.
Mm-hmm.
What specifically were you prescribed? You've talked about the terrible effect that's had on you and how it made you feel. Early on, what were you prescribed, and then what were you taking when it really got so bad that you nearly had a breakdown from it? What were you taking at that particular time?
Well, to be honest, I would get really angry sometimes being on ADD medication. I would just blow up over no reason, just silly things. But I was on this drug called Strattera for ADHD. I was prescribed, and I had an episode one day because I was like, I think I was 14, or maybe I was 13. And my mom told me I couldn't go to the YMCA unless I did my homework. And I got so upset, I just started yelling, and I went to the kitchen and I grabbed an orange, like a huge orange, and then I threw it against this big antique clock we had. It was like a glass antique clock, and it shattered. And my mom did some research on the drugs, and she blamed the drugs for my episode that day. And we changed medications, and then after we changed medications, I went from Adderall. I went to Adderall. That was my next ADHD drug, and I didn't really have any problems with Adderall, other than the fact I would get angry sometimes. But that was the worst episode I had, and then I guess I was getting in fights in school too, but I wasn't getting in fights all the time. It was, yeah, but some of that is just a part of life. But yeah, I do think that the ADHD drugs did make me a more aggressive person when I was on them. When I was on Vyvanse, because I went from Strattera to Adderall to Vyvanse, and Vyvanse wasn't as bad, and I would just take that as needed during college just to focus and study for long periods of time without getting fatigued, mentally fatigued, and but I obviously I wouldn't be able to use those drugs today. It would be too risk taking. But after my experience with antidepressants, I really don't think I'd ever take any psychotropic drugs ever again.
Interesting. And I know that you write about this in your book too.
Mm-hmm.
Pharmaceutical companies spend, because we've been talking about Adderall and some of these drugs. You write about pharmaceutical companies spend $4 billion with a B dollars a year on advertising. As someone who's sort of been in that process, having taken them and having been prescribed them, why do you think they spend so much on these drugs? And you talk about how, we see these drugs all the time because we see these advertisements on TV, for example. You use that as an example all the time, and that gets people talking about it and what it is and what it does and how it could help them with this illness or that illness or this problem or that problem. Why do you think they spend so much on on advertising, especially when we get into things like anxiety and depression? That they've almost created a cottage industry for themselves with their advertising. Having been on the other side, what do you think? Why do you think they spend so much?
Well, I mean, being a business major in college, I mean, to answer that question, why do they spend a lot of money advertising? Because it works. I mean, marketing always plays a huge role in creating business. Not just pharmaceutical companies spend big money in advertising, but every company almost spends a lot of money advertising. I mean, look at insurance companies like Geico and Progressive and State Farm, and they're all spending big bucks for advertising as well. And I'm sure you could probably think of tons of companies that spend big bucks via advertising. But yeah, it's just, yeah, it's a business, you know, just like anything else. But unfortunately, I found out that, you know, it's a business that's not as safe as, you know, we wish it could be. You know, and you're taking a chance with certain drugs that are FDA approved. Even, you know, you think just because it's got a stamp, it's a FDA approved, means it's 100% safe. That's not the case. And doctors get all their information about the drugs from the pharmaceutical companies. So really, the pharmaceutical companies are in full control here. And, you know, of course, I don't feel like the media would bash pharmaceutical companies because most of their funding comes from big companies like Big Pharma, you know, via advertising. So it's just, you know, we don't live in a world that's completely safe anymore. You know, I used to think, you know, I can, as long as a drug was FDA approved and my doctor said, here, take this, everything would be fine. You know, but I found out the hard way, it's not like that.
Yeah, that there's so much more that goes into it other than the doctor says do this and this pill is available.
Exactly.
One thing I found really interesting in your book too, Sam, is on pages 82 to 84, we're introduced to a couple of Bible passages, a couple of Bible scriptures that you quote. One of them is 1 Thessalonians 5:17, and then on the next page we see a description sort of in a shaded gray box of Psalm 71. Tell us a little bit about why you put those two Bible passages in there, and in terms of helping you heal and move past this issue with, you know, with these antidepressant drugs, how that helped you.
Well, those were, I believe they were healing scriptures. I met a pastor at a church, and he was telling me how the Word of God can actually heal people and how he's seen it happen. And of course, me, you know, not having much of a choice anymore, because you know, all I was ever told when I had brain damage was, hey, good luck, I hope you can make it through. From doctors told me that, that's all I was told was good luck. So I had nowhere else to turn but, you know, to humble myself and really ask God for help. So I came in touch with a pastor, and he told me about how healing scriptures can help, you know, heal your mind, heal your troubled mind. And I was like, okay, I got nothing to lose. Let's do this, you know. You know, and that and positive affirmations have helped me unbelievably. The healing scriptures themselves, I would just say them as if I was believing in every single word that I was reciting out loud. I would just go to a quiet room by myself, because, you know, if I'm in front of a bunch of people in the library and I'm saying healing scriptures out loud, it'd probably look kind of funny. But, you know, I just find a quiet place all to myself, and I would just recite healing scriptures out loud, and I would believe in every single word I was saying. So it wasn't just a bunch of mush that was coming out of my mouth. You know, I would actually believe in every single word I was saying. Then I would just recite it multiple times, or how many times or whatever was necessary to calm me down, make me feel better. And it was amazing. It brought calmness over me. It was almost like a meditation. Those, you know, graceful words, you know, brought calmness. and tranquility in my mind and calm me down.
Something else I really liked about your book is on page 92, and you give us a chart, and I love the name of the chart, which is Sam's Mental Strength Guide.
Oh yeah.
And there's 19 steps in here, and so we can't talk about them all here, but there's a couple things that I found interesting. Number one, I just wanted to ask you to give us a little perspective on this. Feelings are not facts. That's number one. What do you mean by that in terms of your mental strength guide for staying mentally strong?
Okay, so that was like the best one I ever created. I would use that, and as I would say that, I would think in my mind, I may feel like I want to kill myself, I want to hurt myself, but it's not a fact. I would always say that. So feelings are not facts, and I would totally believe that, and like, you're always going to think this too shall pass, it's not, you're not going to be feeling like that all the time, where that kind of, that kind of intertwines the waves and the windows talk, but yet I would just feel, sometimes I would feel like I'd feel like that a lot, because after coming off the drugs, I'd feel like I'd want to commit suicide, but I knew it was not a fact, and that's saved me plenty of times.
Okay,
So
very good. I like that. And here's another one I really like. Number 12, if you can take it, then you can make it.
yeah, actually, I heard that one off of a movie. I can't even remember what movie it was. But I can't even remember what movie it was, but it was like a war movie or something. But yeah, I thought it was really good, and I wrote it down one day, and I was like, I got to put that in my book. But honestly, my mental strengthness guide does not have to be your mental strengthness guide. It could be you can customize to whatever you want. This was like an example of what I would use that kind of helped me with my confidence, my anxiety, and more. It was a great mental strength.
Very good.
God.
And there's one more I want to ask you, just as an aside, because I think it's neat, especially where it fits in, because it's surrounded by, I'm thankful for everything God has given me, and I'm confident in my own abilities. And then at number 10, we have women find me attractive.
Oh yeah.
How does that help as a mental strength guide, and why was that added to the list?
Well, at the time, before I had a girlfriend, I did not have a girlfriend, and like, I needed that just to give myself confidence that that I am an attractive person, inside and out, and if the right girl found me or whatever, then we could have a good relationship or whatever. But that was just for me to like build my self-confidence, because like at the time, having brain damage and everything and just wanting to commit suicide every day, that's not really girlfriend material. I mean, boyfriend material, sorry. But yeah, it was just I created that at the time just to kind of build my confidence. But you can customize your own mental strength guide to whatever you want. It really doesn't matter.
You write another statistic that I found interesting. It's a fact that, and you write this later on in the book, it's a fact that 11% of the U.S. population is on antidepressant drugs. And that really caught my attention, because I have people in my life that take medication. My brother takes medication for anxiety and antidepressants. I have friends that do. But when you lay it out really well, and you do the statistics, so I think 350 million people live in America, and that's so much, whatever 11% of that is. I don't have the numbers in front of me, but I was astonished that it was that high, that 11%. Were you astonished by that, and how much of that do you think? And I know this is sort of like a physician's question, but how much of that do you think people don't necessarily need if they would have a mental plan, sort of like you did, and sort of put mind over matter? Would they need that? In other words, are that 11%? From that 11%, are some of those people overprescribed or taking it maybe when they don't need it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that?
I think, yeah, I think the medication is overly prescribed because they prescribe it for not only um, not only depression, but they also prescribe it for anxiety. And I've heard people getting it's prescribed the drug for uh, sleep deprivation or whatever. Um, it's being prescribed for multiple ailments. It's not just depression. That's the scary thing. And then, as I mentioned in the book, going off label, there's drugs out there that are just repackaged and sold as a different drug when really it's an antidepressant. And there's I've read articles on that, and also I caught it one time when I was watching a commercial on television, and at the end they usually tell you all the side effects with the drugs and all the warnings. And I remember watching a commercial for one drug. It was advertised as a weight loss pill, but at the end of the commercial, it was saying all the side effects. Suicidal thoughts, may cause suicidal thoughts, aggressive mania, and then just other familiar side effects that that it made it sound like an antidepressant. And then I remember doing some research, and same substance, antidepressant, just repackaged and relabeled.
Interesting. That's
Yeah,
really
so that's kind of scary.
So in our final moment, Sam, I wanted to ask you, are you working on another book? And if so, what might that be? Are you sticking with this topic, or going to go somewhere else, or write about something else?
Well, I'm not gonna lie. There's definitely not gonna be a Devil's Candy 2 or anything like that. This book was extremely hard for me to write because it takes me back to moments in my life that I was not happy about and that I was scared to death. So this is really horrifying for me, and it was I have like PTSD, and it was really hard for me to write about it, but I didn't make this about me. I really wanted to write this book in hopes that it would help people, because I know that there wasn't much help for me when I had to go through this experience, and I wish there was more help because I was going through a terrible time, and it was just really hard to make it through, and it would have been great to have more help, but that's kind of why I wrote the book. But I do have what I usually do. If I get an idea about a book, I just write it down, then I just file it away. And I'm hoping one day to write a novel, because I have a bunch of ideas for a fiction novel, and I have it all filed away, and maybe someday I can mesh it together and write an awesome fantasy story.
Great, fantastic.
I mean, that's really what I want to do. But yeah, this was really hard to write, and honestly, it's kind of humiliating. This is not easy for me to talk about, but I'm willing to do it because I really do care about people, and I want to help people.
So, Sam, in our final moments, if someone wants to get in contact with you to talk about Devil's Candy, to talk to you about your experiences with antidepressant drugs and what happened to you, or get some advice if they know someone that is on these drugs and is not having a good experience, first of all, where can they get a copy of Devil's Candy, and then how can they get in contact with you?
Well, right now I'm trying to get approved for what's it called? Ingram? Yeah, have you heard of Ingram? Yeah, I'm trying to get approved for Ingram so I could do like a nationwide distribution, so I get in a bunch of more stores. But right now it's obviously available here at Empire Books, and it's also available on Amazon.com. And then I'm also going to be in a store in Lexington pretty soon, Lexington, Kentucky. I can't remember the name of the store, but once I get approved with Ingram, I'm going to try to be in stores nationwide. And in the back of my book, I have like there's like a link to my website. No, there wouldn't be a link, but sorry. There is. It shows you my website, devilscandybook.com, or the Facebook page for Devil's Candy, which is www.facebook.com/devilscandybook, and you can message me there, or you can message me through the website, devilscandybook.com. To get in touch with me, and I can give you the best advice I know possible.
Great. Sam Garton has been our guest today here on Chapters. We've been talking to him about his new book, Devil's Candy, The Lethal Dangers of Antidepressant Drugs, a True Story, a very important book, a very revealing book about the dangers of prescribing medication and what this does to someone when they are put on this. It's a very important book, and I would encourage anyone out there who knows of someone who is taking these drugs, is maybe taking these drugs themselves, or has affiliations in some way with someone who's using this medication, to read this book. Very eye-opening, really a great tell-all story, and appreciate you writing the book, Sam, and also coming on Chapters to talk about it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Sure, absolutely.
Thanks.
And we want to take a moment to say thanks to Christine Dargish and the staff and management of Empire Books and News for providing our on-site support and assistance today. We encourage you to come down to Empire Books and News and pick up a copy of Sam's book, available for you right here at the store. And we also encourage you to stop by and check out all of the author, editor, and publisher interviews that we've done here. Their books and their works are for sale right here at Empire Books and News. So whatever music reading taste that you have or need that you need satisfied, we encourage you to come down to Empire Books and News and get that taken care of. And the staff here can help you find that book you're looking for right here at Empire Books and News. And we appreciate their support and their assistance each and every time that we tape a Chapters program here. So thank you so much for that. We also have made available for you to reach out to us on the program via a variety of social media platforms. The first of those is our email address. That email address is right here at the bottom of the screen. It's lp4@zoominternet.net. Please let us know your name and the location that you're writing from when you send that email in, so that we can keep track of that correspondence. And we appreciate all the comments and feedback that we have received there. Also, we have a YouTube page available through the Armstrong One Wire page, specifically designated for Chapters, and that address is right here at the bottom of the screen. Once you type that into your internet search browser, just look for the Chapters tab, and we have all of our author, editor, and publisher interviews archived for you there as well. And we even have a Facebook page where you can interact and watch episodes of the program through Facebook, and that address is facebook.com/chapters. From there, you can see some of our most recent episodes archived there for you, and interact and comment with viewers of the program. So if you like email, you like YouTube, you like Facebook, we've made it possible for you to stay in contact with the program through one of those means. And we certainly appreciate those of you that do, and those of you that have left comments along the way, and those of you that have shared and reposted our episodes. We appreciate that so much. So please keep doing that. Please keep those comments and feedback coming as we continue to move ahead here on Chapters. And that's going to do it for us this time on Chapters, but please come again next time. And in the meantime, stay tuned to this station for news and views that impact you and your community.